30 seconds. Retire. Yeah. I can have your box. Actually, I know why. I know why you can't find him. Don't worry about it. I know why it's not working, but it's not a big deal. I can fix it. I always fix it.
You might be giving your best case scenario is split 50.
Not everything that you
Well, that would be the other end. Are we ready?
Morning, Debbie.
Good morning and welcome to the June 5 Walton County Technical Review Committee. We're going to go ahead and open the meeting this morning. Abby, do we have any announcements? Rachel? Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get started, and Sammy can join us when he gets here. First item on our agenda this morning is the range project. We have a request to continue to June 19th to allow them to make their presentation with a new access easement to this particular site. Could we have a motion to continue?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
I did.
Did we vote? Yeah. Well, how about let's vote again?
Okay.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? This item is continued to June 19th at 8:30 a.m. in this room. Item number 2 on our agenda this morning is the Pearson Small Scale Amendment requested approved by ordinance, reviewed by Bob Baronti. Bob, if you'll briefly introduce it for us.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Currently, the future land use on this request is residential and public facilities and institutional. This is the Emerald Coast Associates on behalf of David Pearson doing the presentation. The parcel numbers are on your staff report. The proposal is to change for the future land use, change the this public facilities and institution to recreation, and the zoning to change to neighborhood infill. All comments have been made. There's no really any major outstanding comments. The school board has also responded. The agent is here to speak. I will turn it over to agent if she has anything to add.
Okay, just for clarification, this is presently in future land use of residential preservation and public facilities. We're going to neighborhood infill in both the future land use map and the zoning map.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Correct.
This item will have public hearing at the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners, subject to approval by this particular board. Are there any technical comments or questions related to this proposal from any member of the audience? Seeing none, do we have a recommended motion?
Make a recommendation to approve the project and move it to the June 13th PC meeting.
We have a recommended motion. Do we have a motion at the dais? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? This item is recommended for approval to the Planning Commission and will be scheduled to the next available Planning Commission. Brings us to item number 3, the ECBC West Building D, request to approve by development order. It's been reviewed by Kelly Frymeyer. Kelly, if you'll briefly introduce it for us.
And good morning. This project was heard a few months ago at TRC with some outstanding comments. So we've continued it in order to give the applicant an opportunity to do some additional engineering work and investigation out on the property to clarify his drawings. At the time of the report, I had not received a lot of comments back on that resubmittal. So all of you have packets this morning that have the additional comments. There was one outstanding planning comment that the applicant and I have already worked through concerning a plant selection. And then, as your memo indicates, there are a few outstanding engineering comments. But everything else has been satisfied to this point. The applicant and agent are here if there's any
we did receive these comments when we walked in this morning, so I reviewed them. As I said, we have 4 comments. 2 of them appear to be revisions on the plan, typos or some sort of revision on the plan report. Simple enough. One of them was a comment regarding flooding, potential flooding of adjacent properties. We have a explanation on that one, which is that there's a retaining wall that recently constructed on those adjoining properties that prevents any kind of flooding or anything on those, and we'll take some pictures of something and address that, unless build or something,
Yes, the western boundary, I've never seen a vinyl privacy fence being used to retain stormwater.
There's actually a wall on the other side of it, what John was saying.
Is there a wall on the other side? Okay, that wasn't shown on the plan, so I was just,
The residents, they have a 4-foot setback, and they take it every inch. Almost to the top of that fence.
John King. It couldn't, water, it wouldn't be an issue.
So our surveyor couldn't get on the other side of the fence, but we'll take some pictures or something to justify that comment. And that should take care of that one. And you asked for a maintenance plan to address the downstream conveyance, which is simple enough to do. So what we would ask that we approve this. We'll take care of this maintenance plan and the evidence and those 2 typo corrections apparently to address.
just, can you, this is a unique site, you know, with the wetland situation. We've been out there, you and I and Mr. King. Can you just explain how this drainage system is working? Just for the record, there's 2 distinct basins and how you modeled it, and it's unique, and I'd like it to.
It certainly is unique, and that's why it took us so much time to address it. This was a stormwater system that was built in the early 2000s that wasn't documented well, and we had to actually go dig up the storm system and find where this site discharged and bypassed or discharged to the wetlands on the east. Fortunately, we found out that it's a direct bypass connection, so we're not going through any other adjacent ponds or anything to include in our model. So this site is basically just the last point before culvert takes it out to the wetlands and Fringista Beach development. The entity to the east is an HOA or an owners association that's no longer working or improving. So that's why I'm assuming you asked for the maintenance entity to use the drainage easements that are there by plat and maintain that discharge, which the owner of this property will write that this owner has to maintain that.
Right, because that pipe, in the event that it isn't maintained, now everything's just being held in the rear of this proposed development and has the potential to create some impact. So just wanted to make sure that we have a maintenance entity in place that is going to maintain that, knowing the history of the HOA and or this subdivision. And so basically the design is with pervious pavers. So most of the impervious areas go into your parking lot, and there's I want to say plus or minus 12 inches of gravel /
Stone,
exfill stone type material underneath there. So most of your stormwater is being treated in that medium prior to discharging to the west and flowing around in the existing
Correct.
wetland system.
As we talked about before on this project, our goal on this is to preserve the wetlands and utilize those for natural stormwater treatment. That was really the goal of this project.
Right, and so then that discharge into the wetlands provides additional treatment and or drawdown prior to popping off to the wetlands on the east side, which were obviously originally designed that way. We had to do some investigative research to find that out. We've used a fairly conservative approach on this because of the uniqueness. And so I feel comfortable with the conservative assumptions we made. I just want to make sure we can maintain that outfall pipe because it can have
Absolutely.
That's the piece that holds the puzzle together, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. And the second, and just like you, I worry about it as well. The second, in case all else fails on that pipe, the next overflow is the north property retention pond, which overflows via a concrete spillway to a major wet retention pond. So we've got a couple of layers of safety here to address flooding concerns.
Right, the property to the north discharges to the west.
That's correct.
Into the big, like, I assume it was the DOT.
Okay.
Very unique.
This is a minor development. We're going to take a moment to open a public hearing and ask for comments from any member of the audience about this particular development. Would any member of the audience wish to make a comment about this development?
Yes, Commission, my name is Dana Matthews. I'm a lawyer in South Walton. I represent an owner of a number of the units in the 42 Business Center. I didn't know this was coming up today until I saw the agenda yesterday. I'm here for some other reasons, and I'm sure I'm not here to talk about, the engineering review that's been done to date. I am aware that there's been issues concerning the road entrance in there and the condition of the roads and the quote, who's responsible for maintaining stormwater. I heard your comment. And I guess my only question is what document since this is minor development, gets approved here, it stops right here, correct? Mr. Chairman.
Development order after comments are satisfied.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So my question is, what is the actual document? Who's going to sign it? What's it going to say in terms of required maintenance in the future for this particular system? That's my only comment.
The cover sheet lists the maintenance entity, and I believe it lists the owner, and then it says, and successors or assigns, so it would be on the development
So
order
that will actually
plans.
be on the development order.
On the site plan, I know it's on the site plan, I don't know if it'll be in the development order.
But is there going to be something recorded in the public records that is going to have some contractual teeth so the county would be able to enforce that? That's the only question I have.
I expect we'll enshrine it in the development order.
All right, that's my only comment.
Now
This
have-
concern, because I know that there was, years ago in the early 2000s when this project, and they were approved at different pieces, and there were different things with the county, and for whatever reason, that there has been no enforcement of these stormwater issues out there and road maintenance. I know that owners have come to the county, and y'all say correctly, it ain't my deal. Private roads,
Right.
private system, whatever. And I'm just trying to avoid any future exasperation of that particular issue.
Thank you, Dana. Anyone else wish to make a comment or ask a question? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Do we have a recommended motion?
Yes, sir. Motion to approve and move forward to development order pending resubmittal and demonstration of satisfaction of all the comments.
We have a motion at the dais.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Got a second? Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? This motion carries, and subject to satisfaction of comments, we'll move to the development order stage. This moves to item number 4, the South Orange Street lots right-of-way abandonment. This is a request to approve by BCC resolution. The project's been reviewed by Kelly Frommeyer. Kelly, if you can briefly introduce it for us.
Yes, sir. And as we discussed yesterday, I'm going to recommend that we continue this project to the June 19th TRC meeting. The applicant didn't have an opportunity to post the sign for the notification of the meeting. I can introduce it unless you just want to go ahead and.
We've got a recommended motion to continue to June 19th, satisfy the posting requirements. We have a motion at the dais.
Motion.
We have a motion by Sammy. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? This item will be continued to the June 19th Technical Review Committee meeting at 8:30 a.m. in this location. That moves us to item number 5, the 30A Country Mark Sherwin-Williams development. Request to approve by development order. Minor development reviewed by Kelly Frommeyer. Kelly, if you can briefly introduce that to us.
Yes, sir. This is a minor development order application requesting approval to amend an existing development order to change the use of a portion of a building from general business to restaurant, and construct a patio, additional parking, and infrastructure associated with that new use. This property is zoned light industrial and is located at the corner of US Highway 98 West and Lynn Drive. Because this is in the scenic corridor, this will also go to the design review board tomorrow at their meeting. The building is currently in construction on the approved development order. One portion of the building, the tenant is a Sherwin-Williams store, and that was the name of the original application. That's why you kind of see that one here. The other side of the building was designated as general office, but the applicant now has a tenant and would like to change that to restaurant, which would increase the parking and require a few site changes. There's no changes to the exterior of the building. It's just the site to accommodate the new parking and shifting around some of the infrastructure as a result of that. All departments submitted comments. Those are all in your staff report there, and the comments are very minimal. So the applicant is here if there's anything additional there.
Yes, and there were no plans to revise the utilities, so that was the reason why the utility plan was not included, but that's something that, looking through these comments, we'll be providing the utility plan and addressing the issues with the potential hydrant conflict. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Tanya, Tonia, Nation, Nation, with Avcon, Avcon, Inc., Inc.
And so just for clarification, this still, the site's still under construction, so the modifications to the stormwater are being incorporated.
That is correct, yes. The modifications to the stormwater, basically, we made sure that we had the adequate amount of storage. One of the questions you had was pertaining to the drive connections not connecting in. We did provide compensatory treatment to ensure that all the impervious from the site is being accounted for in the stormwater. We were able to, we ended up removing a portion of concrete sidewalk so that or a concrete deck, and putting that underneath now a wood deck so that we can accommodate the stormwater with the addition of the parking spaces that we had. So we just restructured the stormwater essentially.
On the on the east side of the building.
Yes.
Is that deck. And then there was a pipe on the rear of the building, and I didn't question it, but it appears that you had to add a connective, basically an equalizer pipe along the rear of the building, or was that already proposed?
That was already proposed. Essentially most of the stormwater pipes were the same. We did have to shorten a few pipes just because they extended too far out into the basin, but the general infrastructure for the stormwater is generally the same.
Just needed to increase the capacity.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
What do we do with the loading zone?
The loading zone is on the rear of the building. Essentially, the rear of the building is that's where all the loading is going and unloading is going to be. So that area it operates as a loading zone. That's on the.
Doesn't Sherwin-Williams typically get semi-truck deliveries?
They do get semi-truck deliveries, yes.
Where's the semi-truck delivery loading zone?
It is on Veterans Road. They typically deliver early in the morning, and so they would essentially pull just parallel with that long drive in the rear on Veterans Road.
Is that going to obstruct traffic in this industrial subdivision?
No, sir, it would not. We did run some models to make sure that they can pull off onto that concrete apron, and there will not be any issues with that.
I'd like to see that.
Okay, we can provide that. That's no problem.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too.
Okay.
Because this was a pretty tight site before we expanded the use. Yeah, I'd like to see the auto turn analysis of that.
Sure. They will not be, the semi trucks will not be going into the main parking area. The intent was that they would always use the rear. And the Sherwin-Williams was the original tenant for this. And the dimensions of that rear slab in the back has not changed.
Any other questions at the dais? Any technical comments or questions from any member of the audience about this particular proposed development? Seeing none, do we have a recommended motion?
Yes, sir. A motion to approve pending satisfaction of comments and the DRB hearing tomorrow, and move to development order.
In addition to Sammy's request related to loading zone. Do we have motion at the dais? We have a motion to approve subject to satisfaction of comments. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Excuse me. Any opposed likewise? This item has been approved, subject to satisfaction of comments, and recommended for approval to the Design Review Board. This brings to item number 6, the 393 Centennial Bank request to approve by minor development order. It's been reviewed by Matthew Lambert. Matt, can you briefly introduce it for us?
Good morning. This is a minor development order submitted by Choctaw Engineering on behalf of Front Beach Commercial Holdings. This is to construct a 1,600 square foot plus or minus Centennial Bank, a bank building. This is located with a future land use of residential and zoning of neighborhood infill. They did have a community meeting. There was no comments. There was nobody that attended the community meeting. After review, we did have several significant comments, as you can see in the staff report. There's comments from the staff, there is comments from engineering, there is comments from Public Works, and there's also comments from environmental and flood review also. There has not been done since it is neighborhood infill, there has not been a compatibility analysis done at this time due to we do not have an existing condition sheet to show us exactly what's going on the property at this time. I don't know if they're here or not. It doesn't appear to be.
Yeah, this parcel was previously part of that apartment project that they carved out.
And I will say that this is in wetlands and it is in a flood zone A, the whole parcel.
Anybody representing the applicant this morning? It appears not. We have a motion to continue.
Motion to continue.
Do we want to continue this to the 19th?
They have already stated they have received these comments, and we would ask for the motion to the 19th, and they said that they should be able to meet those comments.
We have a motion, we have a second? Motion and a second to continue this item to the June 19th Technical Review Committee meeting at 8:30 a.m. in this location. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. This item is continued to June 18th, June 19th at 8:30 in this room. That brings us to item number 7, the Adair Lane abandonment request to approve by BCC resolution. This has been reviewed by Vivian Shamel. Bob, are you standing in for Vivian this morning?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. This is a petition for abandonment application submitted by Matthews and Jones LLP on behalf of Thomas and Mary Christ, requesting an abandonment of Adair Lane in favor of the Eden Bay Homeowners Association. There have been comments received. I believe Public Works has their traditional comments for that they do not support the abandonment because they don't want to give away right away that they might have to buy back in the future. And there is no other comments. There have been no public comments received other than the planning department's application requirements. And the applicant's representative is here to speak.
Stephen Tatum from Matthews and Jones.
Good morning.
Tatum. Good morning. Just a little brief overview of the project. Adair Lane is a one-way in, one-way out. It only services Eden Bay Estates. Eden Bay Estates was platted back in '77. The lane itself has never been maintained by the county. The homeowners association has, on several occasions, paid for it to be resurfaced. That's part of where this is coming from now. They're going to keep paying for it to be resurfaced. They'd like to, own it and be able to control it. They also would, at some point in the future, like to put a gated access up on it, but that's, a whole other project that we'll go over in a totally different review. So right now, we're just asking that you abandon the roadway, and there is a 20-foot wide drainage easement that goes across 2 properties on the northeast side over towards the bay that we would like to have as abandoned as well. It's just a grown-up area right now, not being really utilized. And instead, I know the application, because of the way the portal works, says that it's in favor or was submitted by Tom and Mary Christ. That's not entirely accurate. It was really submitted on behalf of the homeowners associations themselves. All the members are on board with doing this. The portal, you just have to pick a parcel number, and since the lane itself doesn't have a parcel number to pick, we picked the president of the HOA. So that's it in a nutshell. The statutes on abandonment do allow you, instead of abandoning the roadway and it going half to one property owner on one side and half from the other, there is another function that allows for the county to abandon the roadway as long as the association is intact, operating, has declaration, and agrees to take over maintenance. Questions?
And we're going to confirm the association is indeed intact and.
Yes, association's intact. I can provide all that. I believe I've talked to Sydney about providing all that to her. We're just still in contact with each other.
This will get a public hearing at the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. Are there any technical questions or comments from any member of the audience? Hearing none.
Make a motion to move it forward to the Planning Commission for their consideration.
I just have one question. We don't typically review the abandonments, but you're requesting also to abandon that drainage easement.
That's right.
Was that originally platted to serve as a discharge for the actual road itself?
That's a great question. It was platted in 77. I've not seen any stormwater plans for it. I don't even know, did they do stormwater plans in 77?
Probably not.
I have no idea what the idea was behind that. It's also called Tommy's Trail, and it's an access easement as well for the people in the association to access out back to the bay across that. So that's part of why it's there.
Certainly makes sense to abandon the easement for drainage if we're abandoning the roadway, and it's likely that's what that was intended for. That way, the roadway and the drainage become the responsibility of the HOA if the board chooses to approve the resolution.
And the amendments to the declaration take into account maintenance of both, not just the roadway, but of the maintenance of the drainage area, whatever that might entail.
Let me just go on record that the planning department does not support any abandonments. We do support that the process has been followed, and that would be our recommendation, that the process has been followed according to statute and county procedures. We have a recommended motion to move this forward to the planning commission for their consideration. Do we have a motion at the dais?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second, provided I get that contact information on the HOA.
Absolutely.
Maintenance part.
You want the contact information of the HOA and the maintenance?
They're going to be in charge of maintaining that.
Okay, we'll get that to you.
Okay, we have a motion at the dais. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. This item is moved forward to the next available planning commission meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bob. Brings us to item number 8, the Emerald Bay build-out agreement. Request to approve by agreement with the Board of County Commissioners. This is a major development, been reviewed by Renee Bradley. Renee, if you could briefly introduce it for us.
This is a request to approve the essentially build-out agreement for the Emerald Bay Development of Regional Impact Master Plan. The agreement modifies density and intensity by decreasing single-family units and increasing multifamily assignment for the Walton County side, and not to create any new commercial development entitlements. The project's located on the Okaloosa-Walton County line. It actually crosses that line as far as the DRI. This has been represented by Kim Metcalf and Dana Matthews. Staff does have a few outstanding comments. We have worked with the consultant, Mr. Metcalf, to try to work out a lot of these before we got here. What we have is the future land use. I feel like we need to go ahead and change that in the document now that we have had a settlement agreement on our comprehensive plan. Also, I had some concerns about whether we're correctly identifying the DRI, that we need to show both the north and south of 98 with this build-out agreement. And we haven't done that with the survey that we've gotten so far. Additionally, we've got a request for reduced setbacks as part of the agreement, and staff has some concerns that this is not the correct avenue for that. Other than that, I think they've done a very good job, and that we will be able to move it forward once we get those comments responded to.
Thank you, Renee. Do you have comments from the applicant?
Yes, Dana Matthews represents the applicant. Jay Nettles, General Manager of Emerald Bay, is here with me today. I won't go into the whole history of the Emerald Bay DRI that's gone back since 1984, but the bottom line is that as this committee probably knows, Florida legislature has deemed it in the best interest of the citizens of the state of Florida to ultimately get rid of DRIs. As a matter of fact, you cannot even apply for a DRI anymore. And they have decentralized control over amendments to DRIs down to local government. In July 1st of 18, the new legislation went into effect that these, what we call EBOAs, essential built-out agreements, are no longer reviewable by DEO. They're all done by local government now. And essentially what an EBOA is we take it outside the context of a DRI anymore. We take whatever was vested We agree on where the undeveloped parcels are. We tell you what it's going to be conceptually, and all subject to future, development order approvals down the road. And you have an agreement. This is what it is. It's vested. No more reporting to the state. No reporting to the county on a DRI. And this is the land, and this is what you can do with it. So that's what this agreement. It's been in the works for a couple of years. Emerald Bay is a little bit unique, as you all know, because there's a jurisdictional boundary line between two counties that run north and south through Emerald Bay. And therefore, we have a companion EBOA pending before Okaloosa County, and we're traveling down pretty much parallel paths between the two counties with their different processes for ultimate BCC approval on both counties in mid to end August. We don't have one of the big things two of the things that we're doing. We've gone back and looked at the original DRI and the ADA and all the amendments that have taken place. Last one was in 2007, and we ground truthed, if you will, what's out there today to prepare this essential built-out agreement. If you've read it and you see all the different tables that are attached, it's very detailed and trying to show an historical comparison of what was previously approved versus what we're asking for today. I think significantly that you need to realize that there's 137 units that we are eliminating. So if anything, this is a substantial decrease in existing entitlements. There is a change in some of those entitlements from single family to multifamily, both on the Okaloosa side and the Walton side. They're all identified in the table. Traffic, as I understand it, engineering or public works has reviewed it from traffic. We reviewed it from traffic. There are no impacts caused by this change that we're making today. The other thing is that apartments were previously allowed in the DRI and the prior vesting by both counties. We have eliminated apartments because we know that is something that most single-family homeowners do not like. The other thing I think it's important to understand is that the land that we're dealing with and that are identified on the master plan map is the land that is owned by my client, Emerald Bay Corporation. They have been the owner of that land for many, many, many years. But when you go look at the DRI map, you got tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4, and only the track 1, which has portions of it, are the ones owned by Emerald Bay. And I know I say this because again, essential built out, you have to still meet certain statutory requirements within the DRI and getting within 15% of quote unquote total entitlements. The entire south side of Emerald Coast Parkway, where this DRI includes tracks 2, have nothing to do with this application at all. They've all been built out, platted, approved by the county, third parties own them, homes, condos, whatever it may be. So I can appreciate I'm not sure I understand the comment about number 2 on planning on page 8 of 11, that they want some kind of a legal description or a survey for the south side of Emerald Coast Parkway. My clients never owned that land. It had nothing to do with this application. Whatever acreage it is, based on county property appraiser, tax collectors, however y'all want to do it, that's fine. As far as showing it on a map, we show it on the map, on the master plan map, and I don't have a problem with that comment. But my client should not have to go provide a survey of how many acres on the south side of Emerald Coast Parkway, because I don't think it has anything to do with this request. I agree with Ms. Bradley's comment on number 1. Absolutely, it should be changed since we're getting rid of the DRI. For essentially have an EBOA, you have to have a zoning change and show it on the maps, and it is mixed use. Matter of fact, it's mixed use not only in Walton, but it's the same thing in Okaloosa. In Okaloosa, they call it MU1. I think, Mr. Menader, you're probably very familiar with it, and Anna, that allows all these different uses that we're talking about. And the final thing is, I do want to make this comment, and this deals with setbacks. Remember, this DRI goes back to 1984, and on the Walton side, on the north side of the road, which is the areas that we're talking about, all these different subdivisions that have been approved. There's 3 associations, Jay, I think. All these subdivisions, about 75% of all these lots are all 5-foot setbacks. That's how they were. That's what the CCR say. the declaration of covenants, conditions, restrictions, and easements of record that are filed in public record. When people take title to a lot, that's what they say. That's what the plats say. That's how the county has approved homes being built out there forever. And we had an issue come up within, I guess it was a year ago. We had, was it 23 lot? We had a 23 lot subdivision there that's not part of this because it's already been built out. And we had it under contract to sell to the Huff brothers, and this was a subdivision that had been put in several, back in the 2006, I think, but certain things never got finished, had to go complete it, went and got it, got the plat approved, and next thing we know, the county was saying, well, you gotta have 7.5 foot setbacks on these lots. And so, wait a second, we got 5 foot on everywhere else out here, and so we had to go through the variance process. Yes, it was approved and done, but the DRI does not provide one way or the other on the setbacks. So all the county has and the applicant has and all the owners, you still have owners out there that own lots that have owned them for 20-something years or more. They're not built on. They have an expectation to be able to build a house just like their neighbors with 5 foot setbacks. To have clarity, because we all know this, to have clarity, we included in this EBOA, it's just an agreement between the county and the developer, that in the future that you have on your only single family, I'm not talking about multifamily, single family, that you have the same 5 foot setbacks that everybody else has, and we laid out what those were. So we would ask that you actually support that position, so that you don't have, if you have, what do we have, 65 single-family lots that are going to be left over, you know, in Walton County, does that mean we have to come to the county and have 65 variance requests every single time we, you know, have a home being built? We think that's unreasonable, and we think it's a waste of resources for the county. But that's my comments on that. Other than that, Renee's been great to work with, and I believe we meet all the technical requirements, recommended motion, I think from her, is we meet the comp plan and LDC provisions, and I think this is a good thing for the county. Questions y'all have?
Thank you, Dana. I agree that 65 individual variance requests would be excessive, but that's not what we did on that last subdivision. We did it all at one time. And I think that's probably going to be the appropriate legal method for changing the setbacks. Certainly staff doesn't have that authority. And we do have a procedure in land development code for that, and we've already used it in this DRI once. That would be my recommendation on that. But I'll defer to our legal counsel, and we can discuss that further.
We just ask you move it along.
That is the path that we followed in the past. So I'm going to support Renee's comment related to the setbacks. Do we have a recommended motion?
Can I ask you, what about on the not having to provide a survey of the south side of Highway 98?
I think if we have a summary of the acreage based on what's been platted without having to have a survey, just so that we recognize what's already existing and we have a complete picture, I think that would be adequate, but I don't think a survey.
Provide legal description and/or survey, sir. I did specifically state survey in the comment. Both. I do need some type of legal description for us to be able to include it even in the staff map.
Well, then this is my question.
Do you have an alternative that would cost less
Yeah,
money?
yeah. Well, I mean, you can go print on every parcel ID number on the property appraiser's office, I guess. I don't know how many units there are parcels there. That's the only way I know to do it. I mean, you don't want to, how else can you determine what a survey is unless you went, I guess you could pull every single plat and every condominium declaration, and you could go pull and look at the site plan and see how many acres is being reported and add them all up. I guess my question is, why do you need it if you have them? The essential built-out agreement only deals with the north side. Everybody knows what the south side looks like. I mean, so why do we actually need some type of acreage calculation, I guess, is my question. Here. Only showing the history of how it was developed.
It's still in every table, and therefore, I mean, if we're going to have it in the table, our master plan map needs to reflect it like it always has in every development we've done. And I mean, I'm not trying to be difficult, but in my mind, if we're building out the DRI, we're building out the whole DRI. We're not just eliminating that one and leaving it sitting there.
I have no problem. Exhibit I, if y'all will look to the EBOA, this is what we had filed for the EBOA. If Ms. Bradley would like to include the area south of Emerald Coast Parkway, we don't have a problem with that, showing it pictorially through an aerial from the property appraiser's office. What I'm having a problem is us having to go calculate the acreage south of Emerald Coast Parkway. That's my only problem. I don't have a problem showing pictorially.
Well, we're just asking for it to be depicted correctly on the map, the master plan map as well. One comment that I did have that we need to show what the remaining development acreage is for the DRI. I think we do need to include that. Neither of us is making, that discussion here, but we don't know what the remaining acreage is that all these intensities are going to, and I think we also need to include that in our table.
Okay, and again, this
How many developments are on the south side?
and all the condos going all the
Covenants
way
and
down to the
restrictions
beach.
has a legal description in the map that covers it. It's just going and pulling it and providing it to us.
One second. Is that Emerald Shore? If I may, excuse me, do y'all have, exhibit A? Can I approach? This was part of the EPOA. We're dealing with the north side. These areas are far than it's the same way all master plans go. You don't go survey it, you have this is the way DRI and all the maps go. This here, your question. This is, I think this maybe just one subdivision. Sure. Then you've got this area here. I don't know if that's separate condominium subdivision. You've got this area here. These are all part of the original DRI. So this is that's all I can say. As far as having to go survey today the undeveloped land that is part of the bubble diagram has been there for all the other maps, I think that's an unreasonable request to do that. Obviously.
I don't know that we would need a survey of that.
Pardon me?
I don't know that we would need a survey of that for this purpose.
Yeah.
But we need some recap of what's there.
Okay, so you want, this is my question, you want me to just identify the names of this subdivision and go full of black?
And how many acres are in it? Yeah,
Huh?
yeah. That won't take very long. There are not that many of them, and it will give us complete record for the essentially build-out agreement.
And can we confirm then that we also do not have to go provide surveys of the undeveloped land where the entitlements are going to go in the future, at least at this stage, not till we get to the DO stage?
I don't have a problem not doing a survey. I'm just trying to get them to show the whole DRI and the master plan map. The map that I have that came with the exhibits didn't even show south of 98. And therefore, you can't tell that's what it is. And when you compare the acreage of 114 to the 160 acres that's actually in the DRI for this part of the county, it doesn't match up. So you look at one report to the next, it's just not very clear.
Well, there's some complexity here because this was originally Tidewater DRI, which went into bankruptcy and then was split up into several different sections, 4 different sections, sold to different developers. So there is still a relationship to a connection to the Tidewater DRI, but there was no relationship necessarily between those individual parties that ended up with different sections. So that south part of, that's the section south of Highway 98, was a completely separate developer, and we never had any ownership of that. But I understand what you're asking for.
And I'm trying to keep it as simple and low cost as possible.
Right.
I understand the cost of that, and that's not lost on us at all. So we don't want to spend money just to spend money. But if you can give us a recap of that, just so we got a complete picture.
Yes, sir.
Without the requirement for surveying.
Yes, sir, I'd recommend this to move forward to the planning commission in August, I believe.
Yeah, was it one? Right after that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have a recommended motion. We have a motion at the dais.
Motion to move this forward to the August Planning Commission meeting as recommended by staff.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? This will get public hearings at the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. Anyone have any technical question or comment in the audience at this time? Seeing none, we have a motion at the dais. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? This motion carries and will be scheduled for the August Planning Commission, subject to satisfaction of comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. This brings us to item number 9, the T-Mobile Sierra Holdings sell on wheels. Request to approve by final order. Major development reviewed by Renee Bradley. Renee, if you can briefly introduce it to us.
Major development order application submitted by Baker Donaldson on behalf of Sierra Holdings LLC, requesting to construct a temporary 100-foot cell tower on wheels. Projects located on Seacroft Drive, east of County Highway 393, and identified by the parcel ID in your package. This will be placed on a 40 by 40 leased area with a 30-foot ingress-egress utility easement within the 2.51 acre parcel. This is the same parcel where we have the other 2 temporary cell towers. I apologize for not having all your maps in here. I was kind of late getting those ordered. They are in the staff report now, though. So the site map that I used was one of the previous ones that we had. One of my comments on this about the 2 war informations for 30-foot tower, that was actually in meters. That was my mistake. So that comment's no longer applicable to this development. We need the fall radius on that, and it's my understanding they've already got that in the works to get back to us, and the ISR calculations for the site data table from planning. We do have a comment from fire in reference to the 15-foot access, and it's my understanding they're adding the footage and what they need as far as the gravel to impact to make sure that we have proper roadway for the apparatus to get down. And other than that, sir, we don't have any other outstanding comments other than just our general environmental comments on permits.
Hi, my name's Mary Palmer from Baker Donaldson. Any questions?
Do we have a report from Regional Utilities on the permanent site for these towers and the availability, estimated availability of that?
Has the permanent site applied for major
Have a
development?
development order. We're just waiting on the.
I do not represent the permanent site tower owner. We have represented AT&T, Verizon, and now T-Mobile. We're just here to keep them from having avoidance coverage until the permanent site gets built, but I will check on the status of the permanent site.
That's going to be a big,
Verizon Tower.
that's going to be a question when we get to Planning Commission
Okay.
that we need to have a real answer on.
I will check and determine when the permanent site, like I said, I'm not involved in the permanent site construction, but I will check with them and see.
I would request that we have a letter from Regional Utilities to giving us an update on the permanent site location construction status. Because we get a lot of complaints about these temporary towers on this particular site, and we need them. We need the service. We absolutely do, and we appreciate that, the extra effort that y'all are expending to accommodate your customers in the county here in the meantime, but at some point, this job's got to get finished
I am completely with you.
so that we really have better service. So if you could include that.
Oh, well, and it's, they're waiting on regional utilities, you said? Okay, I'll find one.
Yeah, let's just
I'll
get an
find it.
update, because that will be a question for
I'll be-
planning commission members and certainly Board of County Commissioners. And I imagine members.
I can promise you, we would really like to quit paying this landowner rent too and just have a real tower.
I
for
know
all three of
everybody
my
would, but if we
clients.
can just, if we can provide an update for all of the board
Okay, I will-
members and members of the public, it will
Okay,
quite a public service.
I will try to get that and submit that to you with, I have revised plans that should come out tomorrow.
Thank you. This is a major development application that will have a public hearing before Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. Are there any members of the audience that have technical questions or comments at this time about this proposed development? Seeing none, we have recommended motion.
Yes, sir. If it would please the committee, we try to put this on June 27th, considering what it is, and move it up as quickly as we can. Planning Commission.
Thank you, Renee. We have a recommended motion to recommend approval and place on the June 27th. Board
Planning
of County
Commission.
June
Commissioners.
27th, BS Board of
Planning
Commission.
We're going to
I'm
planning,
sorry, I apologize.
going to Planning Commission first, aren't we?
We're not going to make it. We're going to have to go to July.
We're not May, June 13th, Planning Commission? Okay.
We can get to BCC in the same month.
Okay.
July 11th for the Planning Commission. And what date is it for BCC? 25th for the Board of County.
Okay. Great, okay, thanks.
And improve service at the same
We're
time.
with you.
Let's get it done.
Thank you,
Oh.
Renee. We got a recommended motion to recommend approval to the Planning Commission and schedule for July 11th. Do we have a motion at the dais? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed likewise? This item will move forward to the July 11th Planning Commission, which will be in this room at 4 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 10, the Kaya Master Plan Update, request approved by final order. This major development's been reviewed by Renee Bradley.
That's one of my aliases.
Okay, well, we'll change that. Bob, would you please introduce it for us?
Chair. This is request approved by final order. The Kaya Master Plan Amendment. It's a major development order submitted on behalf of Jenkins Engineers on behalf of SBG PR LLC, requesting the approval for the revision of the PUD Master Plan on 28.64 plus or minus acres with a future land use of mixed use and residential and the zoning of traditional neighborhood development. Parcel numbers are in your staff report. Mr. Chair, there's one outstanding comment about the preservation from environmental that would like to nail down the number. This is actually, as you see on page 6, the comparisons that start on page 5 and move on to page 6 of the approved PUD master plan and the proposed revisions. It's actually a change, lessening of density. I've showed the numbers by uses of the change. Like I said, there's no comments except the one preservation comments. I've received no public comments. As of today, the applicant, Mr. Jenkins, is here today to answer any questions, so I would like to turn it over to him at this point.
Thank you, Bob. I'm Scott Jenkins with Jenkins Engineering, and Rick Borst is also here to represent the applicant. Appreciate you guys hearing it this morning. The one comment that we did get was asking for clarification on the preservation question. When this was initially issued a development order, there was a preservation buyout of 2.05 acres, which was actually paid for at that time in the amount of $542,000 roughly. And I'll get this receipt to Bob. We've actually lowered that preservation requirement a little bit to 2.03, so we're able to save more of the habitat with this change. So we're just making sure we stay underneath that requirement, and that's where we are now. So I'm assuming you don't give money back, so we won't ask for that, but we should stay underneath our preservation requirements. Other than that, as Bob said, I don't think there are any other outstanding questions or issues.
Chairman, I would like to maybe request, while talking to Public Works, I guess they were requesting a spreadsheet sort of to track what's been done and what's been used, so we come up with the definitive percentage.
Well, and one quick question though, I didn't see our comment in here. We were asking, I guess, just for clarification on if you're doing any improvements or changes to the right-of-way from what was previously approved by Public Works?
No, it'll stay the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that was our comment, was if there was going to be changes, let's submit a development order and do it that way. But if there's no
Yeah,
changes, then we're
there's no
fine.
changes to the right-of-way.
Okay, then we're good.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
One of the things that we certainly want to include as we move forward in each of the development orders, as a component of those plans, have a drawdown table for the entitlements, and just check register, subtract that stuff by development order.
We've been including those with each submittal as they come.
I'll make sure that's in that form, Mr. Chair.
That helps everybody stay up to date on what we've done and where we've approved it. Yes, so we show what's still available to be constructed. Okay.
And I think on the traffic reports that they submitted, I've been kind of keeping track of what's being proposed and what's remaining after that. So I've been trying to keep a running total, but I agree we need to have a table that we're all familiar with for that. And then going along those lines, I know there was an agreement, a developer agreement for the right-of-way improvements as Anna was discussing. And so with this change, it actually is going to reduce the prop fair share. So that, does that agreement have to be revised, or how does that work?
I don't believe it does, because their agreement actually was in excess of what your prop fair share was by about $1.5 million, I think, with the improvements they were making. So they're so far over what that requirement was, it shouldn't be. That dollar amount is kind of not really that important. So.
This will get a public hearing at Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. Anyone in the audience have a technical question or comment related to this proposal? Seeing none, do we have a recommended motion?
Chair, I'd like to recommend a motion of approval and move this project to the July 11th PC, and then also at the same time move it to the July 25th BCC meeting.
We have a recommended motion. We have a motion at the dais.
I will make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Likewise, this motion carries and will be scheduled both for Planning Commission and Board of County Commission in the month of July.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This will move us to item number 11 on our agenda this morning, the Grace Point Phase 1 residential replat. Request approved by final plat. It's been reviewed by Renee Bradley. Renee, if you could briefly introduce it for us.
Yes, sir. This is a replat application submitted by Interlight Engineering Corporation on behalf of JS Partners Grace LLC, requesting approval of replat Grace Point Phase 1 and remove lots 42 and 43 on 6.35 plus or minus acres. The property has future land use of mixed use and a zoning of traditional neighborhood development. I think the project is located on the south side of County Road 30A, 1 block east of Dune Drift Drive, and the parcel IDs are identified for that plat in your report. It's my understanding that there's a sale of these lots, and therefore is why they're trying to take them out of this Grace Point Phase 1. I have been reviewing the less than minor development order that has to take place to go with this, and I don't really have any outstanding comments as far as the plat goes, other than what we're trying to do, that the less than minor's got to be done first, and that we need to put the title opinion on the survey. And the fact that I have been reviewing the less than minor has been submitted, and we understand that development order needs to be written before we put this on an agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. This time I'll turn it over to.
Thank you, Renee. I'm David Smith with Interlight Engineering, and I'm representing the applicant. And I agree with Renee, the comments are very minor. We agree with her comments, and we would respectfully request to move forward, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
And just for clarity on the less than minor for the board members, if you hadn't got a chance to look at it, basically just have to remove infrastructure. So there's an existing road there, there's gravity sewer lines, and then a water service to serve the two lots. And so the less than minor is just to remove those infrastructure components.
Correct.
I just have one question. Why?
There's some other agreements in place, like Renee said, the possibility to sell these to a different owner. So I'm not involved in all the agreements that are going on there. So there's a sale pending.
We have made it clear, sir, that, you know, any different type of use or anything that happens to these two parcels in the future would require a PUD amendment to take place before they can move forward on that. They're not used for residential. They will have to amend the plan unit development to accomplish it.
Now, the two lots that I'm looking at your planning comment, the two lots that we're removing actually have been constructed or have not yet been constructed?
Well, the infrastructure is constructed, which is why they'll have to remove that with the less than minor. The roads and everything is in place.
I will add that the lots are vacant though, Mac.
Okay. This will get public hearing at Board of County Commissioners. Are there any technical comments or questions related to this replat application from any member of the audience? Seeing none, do we have a recommended motion?
Recommended motion, sir, is that we move it forward to the Board of County Commissioners once we have a response to all comments and the list of minor development order is completed.
Thank you, Renee. We have a recommended motion. We have a motion at the dais. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. So.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed likewise? This motion carries, and we'll move to the Board of County Commissioners, subject to satisfaction of comments and completion of the less than minor.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Renee. This moves to item number 12, the Showalter Pet Salon. Request to approve by minor development order. This has been reviewed by Bob Baronti. Bob, could you briefly introduce it for us?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is a minor development order application submitted by JP Engineering, LLC, on behalf of Ellis and Artel Showalter, requesting approval to develop and construct a commercial building 864 square, plus or minus square feet to provide pet-related services, not boarding. On 0.36 plus or minus acres with the future land use of mixed use in the zoning district of Coastal Center. The project is located approximately 0.05 or 0.5 miles north of the US Highway 98 Mac Bayou Road intersection on the west side of Mac Bayou Road and is identified by the parcel number inside your staff report. There are some comments that have arrived after the staff report was published. They will be provided to the applicant. The outstanding comments are minor and can be addressed. And the applicant is here.
There we go. So we don't have any issues with any of the Jernigan, Jernigan. If there are any questions and
For the record, I didn't see Public Works comments, so is that one of the comments going?
I believe so. I
Okay.
believe I did call you.
I think we have received yours about the pavement cut, the boring,
Yeah, the
and
pavement
culvert
cut's in
counts.
there.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we'll have those addressed.
I think it was maybe fire, right?
Yeah, fire got it after the deadline, and I believe that was the only one that I was. Oh, and I haven't got anything from GIS, but I don't typically, so no comments assumes that there's no problems.
And this is pet grooming, not pet motel.
Yes, sir. We verified they're not gonna have, they'll have cages for the dogs that are waiting to be picked up, but there'll be no overnight boarding.
Okay, this is a minor development, and as such, we'll go to development order upon recommendation from this board. We'll take the opportunity to open a public hearing and invite any comments or questions from any member of the public in attendance this morning. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We have to recommend a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a recommendation to conditionally approve pending successful completion of the comments and move to the development order stage.
Thank you, Bob. We have a recommended motion. Do we have a motion at the dais? We have a motion by Sammy. Do we have a second?
I will second it. I'm sorry.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item is carried and we'll move to development order upon satisfaction of outstanding comments.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Gracie and Bob. This moves us to item number 13, the Emerald Coast Emporium. This is a minor development order request. Bob, if you could briefly introduce it for us.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is a minor development order application, as you stated, submitted by DAG Architects on behalf of Sundial/Emporium LLC, requesting approval to update and improve existing shopping center on 3.214 plus or minus acres with a future land use of mixed use in the zoning of Coastal Center mixed use. The project is located at 10859 US Highway 98 West, across from Silver Sands Outlet Mall on the south side of US Highway 98, and is identified by the parcel numbers on the staff report. This project is basically they're improving the frontage and exterior and the parking. It's actually reducing the footage of the shopping center by 2,697 square foot. As I said, the only change is the facade and the landscaping improvements. There are no outstanding comments at the time. I got soft fires, and I will send those to you. And I have no comments from Public Works on this project, and obviously no school district because of the nature of it being commercial. And I would like to turn it over to the applicants to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Bob.
Hi, I'm Levi with DAG Architects. We're representing the owners. This is Patrick Hodges, our landscape architect. Like you mentioned, the project is essentially a facelift. So everything that we're doing is, the intention is it to be freestanding, not affecting the existing structures. We'll dress it up, put some lipstick on it and really revitalize the shopping center. I think that's also being taken into consideration is the landscaping. Right now there's a hedge, there's a lot of improvements happening along 98. And so we're trying to accommodate those and make a much more welcoming and inviting shopping center. Levi, last name Wiegand, and I'm with DAG Architects.
Sorry. I just wanted to make a clarification or correction to the introduction. They're not actually reducing the square footage of the buildings. The reduction of 2,697 square feet is actually impervious area, so that basically helps the stormwater situation. Not that they have one, but it's a net reduction in impervious area.
Correct, I have that highlighted here as well.
And of course, they're not expanding the square footage of the building. There's no changes there, so traffic is okay as well.
I note that this doesn't intend to go to DRB.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that would be the motion to conditionally approve pending successful comment submittal and the DRB approval.
Do we have proposed DRB date going in July?
Hasn't been reviewed. It would be July. Tim was out.
Subject to DRB review. Do we have any comments or questions from any member of the audience related to the technical aspects of this proposal? Seeing none, we have recommended motion.
Like to make a motion to conditionally approve pending successful completion of the DRB and move it to the July 5th. DRB? To the July DRB for their consideration. And then once that's met, move to the DO stage.
That is on July 5th. Yes, the 4th is Thursday. Well, then we can recommend that it move to the next available DRB.
I'll change my motion to move it to the next appropriate DRB meeting time and place.
As soon as that is rescheduled from July 4th.
Yes, sir.
We have recommended motion. We have a motion at dais, and we have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. This item will move forward to the Design Review Board. Thank you, gentlemen. This brings us to item number 14, the SRB Executive Express Car Wash, request to approve by final order. This is a major development being reviewed by Tim Brown. Tim, if you can briefly introduce it for us.
Yeah, good morning. SRB Executive Car Wash. It's on the south side of Highway 98, just west of 393. Proposing a 3,396.45 square foot car wash. Got a future land use of mixed use and a zoning of village mixed use. There are a number of planning comments, a number of engineering comments, floodplain and public works. There's also, wasn't included, but there's also some scenic corridor comments as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Darrell Barnhill representing ECM Engineers. Van Butler is our P of record. Can you hear me okay? Okay. We've looked at those comments. It appears most of the comments relate to landscaping, locational landscaping, and possibly some relocations of the building and those issues. We will be glad to answer any engineering questions that you may have about it, but we ask that you accept Mr. Brown's recommendation, and let's move it ahead to the DRB that based on the comments, we don't believe there's any showstoppers in those comments. Those can be addressed by some revisions and mainly with the involvement of our landscape architect and our building architect.
Just have one question.
Yes, sir.
How come this site's already under construction?
Aware that it was.
It's already been cleared and fill has been added. It's the site immediately west of 393?
Immediately west of the bank. Yes, sir.
That's the site.
Yeah, I've outlined in the staff report that there's currently an outstanding code enforcement violation on that property.
We understand that will have to be addressed prior to any development orders or any other items.
Well, actually, the development order will clear up the code violation because it's basically doing development without a development order. So the approval of this project will satisfy the code violation.
And this one is going to be subject to additional development order fees for development without permits. We'll address that in between now and the design review board. We have a recommended motion, Tim?
I just have questions
I'm sorry.
about the circulation of the car wash. So you come in off of 98, and of course you go around the west side of the building to pay and or decide what service you're going to purchase. And then you come on the south side and you enter the car wash going north. And then both of the lanes on the north side of the building are heading back west. So after I get my truck washed, I have to go back and wait through the line of the queued cars before I can exit the car wash.
I'll let Mr. Butler address that.
We worked yesterday with Mr. Pope, the architect, and you will be able to turn, we're gonna revise the circulation where you will be able to turn right coming out.
Come out of there and essentially exit on the south access road. And then on the south access road, there's a lot of notes on the plan saying there's coordination with adjacent property owners and this and that. Has that been established? Is that agreed upon?
No, we need to approach, I believe the fire department owns the Habitat for Humanity property, and it's really just, there's a couple of inlets that are right against their property and would really alleviate some issues that were going on there, and I just thought we might approach them on at least paying for those two inlets or possibly some of the other stuff, but the survey work, there'll be a little bit of off-site survey work.
I think that was one of our comments too, was identifying the local authorities. So you're referring to the fire department when you say local authorities?
And the county, I mean, in terms of just really by coordination. I don't know if it's really financial participation. I thought more of in the design part of it as well. Because of the off-site drainage coming to those.
I don't have the survey in front of me, so there's an easement there, I assume. It looks like there is or unless that's just an offset of your proposed center line, because the property line appears to go to the midpoint of the southern drive lane.
That's correct.
And
yes.
so is there a shared access easement across these properties? Because that access ultimately goes back out to 98 as well, as it's shown here. So I was just curious if there was.
There is an easement. I think it ends at the west end of their property there. I don't think it goes back out to 98. I kind of wish it did, but there is an easement across those properties on each side, north and south of the center line of the road.
As a point, we've been working with the DOT and the adjacent property owners in an attempt to eliminate the entrance as proposed and have a single entrance into our site and the adjacent property owner to the west side. And the adjacent property owner would not agree to any form of a joint participation agreement or any construction agreement. So the DOT has granted us that access is shown.
DOT's okay with those two accesses being side by side like that,
Well,
separated?
Based on our discussions with the adjacent property owners, I don't know if they're okay with it or not, but they've granted us that design.
Difficult because of the taper, and so the only place to connect is on the east side there. There's a taper, there's a turn lane on starting there.
There's a portion of a drainage easement on your eastern boundary, correct, that serves the bank?
Right.
I know that bank has had issues with drainage in the past, especially in large storm events. I think I haven't seen it personally, but they've had flooding issues there. Is that retaining wall going to impede any of the existing storage capacity they have in that system once this is constructed?
No, it won't, and we took, that's really the retaining wall is so that we don't affect anything, change anything they've got going. And we do have them overflowing out to 98 to an inlet there. The dotted line, I believe it should be on your plan, is roughly the outline of their retention area.
Right.
Any other questions?
That's all I have, Mac. I'm sorry.
Do we have any technical questions or comments from any member of the audience? Seeing none, we have recommended motion. Tim, do we have a recommended motion?
Talk to from both sides. Yes. A motion to approve the project pending resolution of all outstanding issues.
We have a recommended motion, we have a motion that dies.
Motion.
And we're gonna get a resubmittal prior to DRB, related to all of these comments.
We expect to, yes.
We'll have a traffic report.
We have a recommended motion. We have a motion at dais. We have a motion, do we have a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed likewise.
Ms. Barnhill, I will not be your contact for that. You can call me on that first.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that information. It's very helpful.
We voted, I think.
Okay, good. Sorry, just trying to keep up.
I understand.
This moves us to the last item on our agenda this morning, and this is the Tom Thumb number 160 at Forest View. Major development submitted by McNeil Carroll, and has been reviewed by Tim. Tim, if you could briefly introduce for us.
A proposal for a 6,500 square foot convenience store gas station with drive-through restaurants. It's located at the northeast corner of Highway 98 and MC Davis Boulevard as part of the Forest View Village PUD. A number of planning comments, environmental, engineering, and one comment from Public Works. There was also some scenic corridor comments as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Carol.
Button out is on.
Is it on? Okay, apologize. Most of the comments had to do with, I think, landscape comments, pretty straightforward. The only comment that we had a question on was number 7 on planning. It's regarding having the 5-foot foundation planter. We went through, looked in the code section 5.0104, and there was, I think, 3 different criteria. Must be a minimum of 50% of the facade length. Says, talking about deviations. So the PUD, Forest View PUD states that there is no landscape buffer required along MC Davis Boulevard. However, we're providing a 20-foot landscape buffer there. So we're hoping that the 20-foot landscape buffer, instead of shifting everything to create that, the 20-foot gives you more of a buffer than if we try to add 5 foot up against the building. It's a convenience store, lots of traffic coming in and out. We do meet it on the south side up along Highway 98. We do have landscaping basically around the perimeter of the whole building except on the one side adjacent to the parking lot. Hoping that that would suffice and not have to redo the site plan. This is a new one I've not seen before. I guess this was added in the new section of the code.
Yes, this came in the revision to Chapter 5. It doesn't relate to the perimeter landscape buffer. This is more the aesthetics of commercial buildings and parking lots.
It talks about being a public road, and that road is utilized by the public, but it's more or less a private street that's for that internal campus. And I know the office complex, which is the rest of them part of the PUD, they're not abiding by this same condition, so any difference. Tend to have the ice machine out there. It tends to have things within that. That's why the sidewalk is 8 feet wide. A lot of pedestrian traffic, and
It's in the code now.
no way around not having it there. We meet around the entire perimeter of the building. It talks about 50%. And if you take the rest of the building facade, we're over 60% of the building contains a minimum 5 foot wide landscape area. affect the total perimeter of the building.
You might want to come in and talk about this one. How much parking are we providing?
$35 spaces.
That includes the spaces in front of the pump?
Yes, sir.
Given this location, this convenience store will be very popular, and it's probably not going to be large enough. Given that we have an elementary school and a sports park and the rest of the PUD behind it.
Sure. There's convenience stores in Inlet Beach, and the other one's on 331, so it's the only one in that area.
Yeah, and both of those are way too small.
6,500 is the, I think the PUD is the maximum allowable within this parcel, so. The original design was larger.
Have any more questions at the dais?
The traffic, just a point of clarity, you and I discussed the traffic and using DOT pass by
Yes, sir, and I'll send you
percentages.
that.
And that's
Yes,
all
sir,
I was
I have that.
requesting on that. And then the geotech, I didn't see any double rings or any kind of test to justify the permeability rates used.
We're raising this site up about 5 to 6 feet, so it's all clean fill, and I'll put that in there.
That's all
The
we
type
need
of
to
soils
have.
that's coming in. Yes, sir.
What side is the drive-through?
On the south side. Yes, sir. The menu board is on the east side of the building. And we did not receive fire comments, so I don't.
Should be.
State's fire has not been received. Are there comments?
I don't think so.
It's got good circulation, so I wouldn't anticipate it. We'll coordinate on the landscaping between the parking lot and the building. Other than that, I think everything else we can have to you in the next 2 days at most.
We didn't have a landscape plan in this package.
Turner landscape.
I just put the civil plans in, I guess that's what got included in the project, the TRC project folder.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments related to this particular development from any member of the public? Seeing none, we have a recommended motion.
Yes, a motion to approve the project pending resolution of all outstanding comments and move it forward to the design review board.
We have a recommended motion. Do we have a motion of the dais?
Motion.
We have a motion by Sammy. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Bill. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item is moved forward to the Design Review Board, subject to satisfaction of outstanding comments. That concludes our agenda this morning. Thanks to everyone for coming. To adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Back on the, I didn't.
All right. Okay, sounds good.
I uploaded both of them, I must not use the same.
I was about to say,
application
just
number.
use the same number and I'll find the other one.
I guess, you don't feel